Welcome to Drama Box Office. In today's video, we'll explore the gripping and action-packed tale of Venom, The Last Dance. In a different place than Earth, known Clintar, there are many symbiotes, and in the midst of all these symbiotes sits Knull. The god of Cambio sits Knull, the god of all these symbiotes. Knull is imprisoned because the symbiotes around him have restrained his hands, feet, and body. He is the one who created the symbiote species. Many years ago, Knull was in his dark empire, but suddenly one day light came and took his dark empire away from him. Later, he created symbiotes who betrayed him and imprisoned him. Knull further states that to escape this imprisonment, he needs the Codex, because the Codex is the only thing that can unlock this prison and free him. There are also many xenophages. There, besides symbiotes, xenophages are creatures that kill and eat symbiotes. Years ago, when the symbiotes turned against Knull, they collectively imprisoned him. However, the xenophage species still remain loyal to Knull. Knull orders all his xenophages to spread across the universe and search every planet for the Codex. As soon as any xenophage finds the Codex, it must bring it back to Knull so that he can use it to free himself. Knull declares that once he is freed, he will destroy the entire universe and rebuild his dark empire. So Knull opens multiple portals around him and sends the xenophage to different planets across the universe to search for the Codex. Whereas on Earth, Eddie Brock is sitting in the same bar where he was last seen in Spider-Man. No Way Home, Eddie is trying to learn more about the MCU heroes and listens to the bartender recount how a villain named Thanos appeared in this universe and wiped out half the population for 5 years. However, just as this conversation unfolds, we see Eddie Brock beginning to return to his own universe. Eddie and Venom realize that they are still in the exact same bar. They were in the MCU located in Mexico as soon as Eddie arrives. Venom extends multiple arms from Eddie's body to prepare him a drink. However, the bartender notices these strange arms emerging from Eddie's body. At the same moment, Eddie notices ATV in the bar playing the news, which announces that Detective Patrick Mulligan has been found dead, and the police suspect Eddie Brock is responsible. The police are actively searching for Eddie, but he is currently missing. Upon hearing this, Eddie realizes that returning to San Francisco would be risky, as the police would likely arrest him, leaving him unable to prove his innocence. Venom then asks Eddie what he plans to do next. Eddie responds that he will go to New York, where he knows a judge with a lot of dark secrets. Eddie plans to blackmail him so that they can escape this situation. After making this decision, Eddie pays the bartender and leaves the bar. However, as he puts the money down, a small piece of Venom's body remains on the counter. Just as Eddie steps out, he hears the sound of multiple dogs barking as he pursues the sound. He ends up in a sketchy-looking place where innocent dogs were captured in cages. They encounter a group of people who have captured these dogs. Eddie warns them to leave and tells them that if they release the dogs and leave quietly, however, the men refuse and attack Eddie, firing their guns at him in an instant. The symbiote surges forward and Eddie fully transforms into Venom. Towering and fearsome, Venom smashes the cages open, releasing the trapped dogs. He then lunges at the three criminals, overpowering them effortlessly and without hesitation smashes their heads. Then he made sure the dogs were safe and left unbeknownst to Eddie. A xenophage, one of Knull's creatures, is watching him from the rooftop of a nearby building. Eddie remains unaware of its presence and keeps walking elsewhere. A mysterious man monitors Eddie through CCTV cameras. Though his face remains hidden, he comments that Eddie Brock has reappeared and it's time to capture him. The man contacts General Strickland, ordering him to track Eddie down. General Strickland immediately heads to the bar where Eddie was last seen. When General Strickland questions the bartender recalls a strange visitor who had multiple hands that could stretch and grab things from a distance. After hearing the bartender's story, General Strickland orders his team to knock him out and take him along. They follow Dr. Payne, a scientist, is at Area 51, the secret U.S. facility rumored to study extraterrestrial life. Dr. Payne is working on several symbiotes that have been captured and stored there. Alongside her, General Strickland is also working. He is studying these symbiotes to understand why they came to Earth and what they want from the planet. The female scientist explains to General Strickland that symbiotes behave like parasites and can form a bond with other creatures. However, so far she hasn't succeeded in finding a creature with which the symbiotes can establish a stable relationship. At this point, she then takes General Strickland to a room where Patrick Mulligan, the same man they previously thought was dead, is being held. However, he refuses to cooperate or provide any information about the symbiotes. It seems the reason for his silence is that the symbiote he'd bonded with left him to die, leaving him betrayed and bitter during their conversation. It's revealed that when they first found Mulligan, he was lifeless, but they were able to bring him back. Mulligan stands up and approaches the glass wall of his containment cell. But the voice that speaks isn't his. It's his symbiote. The symbiote warns Dr. Payne and General Strickland of an imminent threat. No, the god who created all symbiotes. The symbiote explains that Knull is also responsible for creating xenophages, one of which recently attacked Eddie Brock long ago. The symbiotes managed to imprison Knull, but now he's trying to break free to do so. Knull needs the Codex, which is bonded to Venom, to be free. No needs the Codex. Whereas Venom explains to Eddie that a symbiote has the power to resurrect its host. If a host dies, the symbiote can bring them back to life. This resurrection creates a unique energy within both the symbiote and its host, known as the Codex. This is what Knull requires to escape from his prison called Clintar. Relieved, Eddie tells Venom that he's never died, so they don't have a Codex. But Venom shocks him with the revelation that he died. Once this triggers a flashback to the first Venom movie, showing how Eddie Brock died and Venom resurrected him, forming the Codex within Eddie and the symbiote. Whereas to make them reach Venom, a huge xenophage attacks them. A huge battle ensues between them. However, their fight doesn't last long, as the xenophage gets killed when it collides with the plane's engine. Venom transforms into a parachute and helps Eddie to land on the ground. Eddie was confused as to what that creature was. Venom further explains that the xenophage can only detect the Codex when Eddie is fully transformed. When Eddie becomes Venom, the Codex on his neck glows, sending a signal that allows the xenophage to track them from afar. Venom warns Eddie that as long as the xenophage is hunting them, he cannot fully transform Eddie, as it would lead the creature to them, risking their lives and allowing No to be freed. As they continue, Eddie and Venom come across a horse and decide that Venom will bond with it to escape faster. Venom transforms into the horse and runs away with Eddie. Venom ran at flash speed. Tired, he stopped to drink water. But just then, General Strickland team attack them. Venom and Eddie separate and fall into water. Venom dodges the attack and swan towards Eddie to bond with him. Eddie also manages to escape from the attackers in a desperate attempt to protect Eddie. Venom temporarily bonds with a frog and a fish. But when those options run out, he fully bonds with Eddie again. As soon as they bond, the xenophage detects them and heads their way. Just then, General Strickland's team, frightened by the creature, opens fire. Venom seizes the moment to slip back into Eddie's body, helping him escape together. They evade both General Strickland's team and the xenophage. Eddie journeys through the forest until he meets a man named Martin, who is traveling with his wife and 2 children. Martin offers Eddie food and shares that he is heading toward Area 51. Having always dreamed of seeing aliens, realizing Martin is a kind-hearted, innocent man, Eddie asks for his help. He requests a ride to New York City, and Martin gladly agrees, taking Eddie along with his family. Meanwhile, Patrick Mulligan transforms himself fully in front of Dr. Payne and her co-worker, Dr. Sadie. He informs them that the King of Darkness, Knull, seeks for Codex, that only Venom has. Just then, General Strickland also arrives and questions him on how to stop No. Patrick tells him that No, if found, the Codex will destroy the universe and rule it through his darkness. The only way he can do it is by obtaining a Codex. And if anyone, the symbiote or its host, dies, then they both can't combine ever, and the Codex will be destroyed, whereas Martin and his family drop Eddie off in New York before continuing their journey to Area 51, once in New York through CCTV cameras. General Strickland was able to identify the location of Eddie. Meanwhile, Eddie changes his clothes to stay undercover and heads straight to a casino. Venom expresses how he would love to see the Statue of Liberty. Eddie promises him that they will definitely go after sorting this mess inside the casino. Venom forces Eddie to gamble all his money, and unfortunately, they lose all of it. Just then he sees Mrs. Chen. He runs into Mrs. Chen, who is thrilled to see him. She welcomes Eddie back to her home, happy to help him. Once again, they both head towards her room, which she won by gambling in the casino. There she requests Eddie to dance with her. Eddie refuses, but Venom gets excited and starts dancing properly, transforming Eddie into Venom. But as soon as this happens, Xenophage tracks them down and arrives there. Upon seeing Xenophage, Venom retreats back into Eddie's body, preventing Xenophage from tracking him, and the creature quietly leaves. After Xenophage leaves, we see General Strickland and his team arrive. They knock Eddie Brock unconscious and use a device to extract Venom from his body. Curious Dr. Sadie goes to look at the symbiote Venom as soon as Eddie Brock regains consciousness. He realizes he's inside Area 51's lab, inside the lab. Eddie encountered Patrick Mulligan, who he thought was dead. Patrick urges Eddie to protect the Codex from the Dark Hands and keep it safe. Just then, General Strickland approaches him, and Dr. Sadie tries to stop him, but his orders are superior just as he shoots Eddie. Venom takes control of Dr. Sadie and throws General Strickland away, revealing that when Dr. Sadie went to see Venom, she bonded with it, Venom. But as this happens, Xenophage also tracks him and enters the lab. Upon entering, it begins to destroy the entire lab and starts killing General Strickland's men. Dr. CD opens the containers of all the symbiotes so they can help Venom defeat Xenophage. However, we see that Xenophage is much more powerful than all these symbiotes, and she manages to catch and devour some of them. The next moment, Eddie Brock escapes the lab and finds himself in an open area where he notices Martin and his family have also come. Eddie rushes to them and safely leads them away. Meanwhile, all the symbiotes start to overpower Xenophage. But as this happens, Xenophage screams loudly and signals her other companions, causing many portals to open around her, and 4 or 5 more Xenophages to arrive. Seeing this, Eddie Brock becomes Venom again and starts fighting alongside all the symbiotes against Xenophage. However, both Venom and Eddie Brock are severely injured. Then the Venom symbiote takes Eddie Brock a little distance away and tells him that there's only one way to defeat all these Xenophages. They need to face them together after this. Eddie Brock becomes Venom again and approaches all the Xenophages, seeing him. The Xenophages surround Venom. Then Venom extends many of his tentacles and starts to bond with all the Xenophages, incorporating them into himself. After doing this, Venom moves to a nearby area where there is a very powerful acid that can destroy anything. Venom's plan is to kill all the Xenophages with this acid, as Venom brings them close to the acid just before reaching it. He pulls Eddie Brock out of his body to save his life. He then signals General Strickland to begin the contamination process. After that, Xenophages gradually perish to speed up the process. Venom puts a safe door on Eddie and destroys the containers containing the liquid in the process of killing Xenophages. The Venom symbiote also dies. Eddie falls unconscious due to multiple injuries. General Strickland shoots the bomb to make a huge blast to save Dr. Sadie from the blast. Dr. Payne breaks the container and bonds with the symbiote and saves Dr. Sadie later. Eddie Brock's eyes open and he finds himself in a hospital. A senior officer from the U.S. military comes to see Eddie, thanking him for saving everyone from the alien creatures called Xenophages, which prevented a major disaster thanks to Eddie and his Venom symbiote. The officer frees Eddie from all charges and tells him he can now live his life freely. Eddie Brock starts to live his life normally, but he misses his Venom symbiote a lot. He goes to watch the Statue of Liberty, as Venom always wanted to see it, whereas No angrily states that he will destroy the entire universe. And that's the end of this breathtaking saga, Venom, The Last Dance.